Okay. Well, thanks all for joining us. My name is Zalak Trivedi. I'm on the product team at Sigma. And with me, I have here Todd Kieser. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Todd Kaiser. I'm one of the senior directors at Saddle Creek Logistics. I've been with the company for about 13 years. I run our business intelligence group, our transportation systems team, and our corporate systems group.
Awesome. So here's a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to talk about Saddle Creek. We're going to talk about a little bit about Sigma, and then go into the journey that Todd took to kind of move from on-prem to Databricks and then Sigma, and then talk a little bit about what's next for Todd and Sigma at the end. I'm going to try to keep my stuff to a minimum. Think of me as like a loading bar before the dashboard loads, which is Todd. And with that, I'm going to give it.
We don't have that though with Sigma, right?
I mean, a little bit of load time, you know. Let's see. All right.
Go ahead and go to the next one. So just a little quick background on Saddle Creek. We've been around since 1966. Our corporate headquarters is in Lakeland, Florida. We are privately held, but our spiel is we're professionally managed. We've got about 6,000 full-time associates with about another 4,000 temporary associates that we employ. Just over 33 million square feet across 49 locations in the U.S. From the asset-owned side of our business for transportation, we've got about 500 tractors and a little over 2,000 trailers. And in terms of carriers that we contract with, over 10,000 so far, and growing. So, next up, just a little map of where we're at in the U.S. When everybody talks about the supply chain issues, it's not us. We're the guys that are trying to help solve it, But this is our facilities across the U.S. You can see we're mainly based on the east side or the Midwest, and a few over here on the West Coast. And just a quick overview of some of our clients that we have and support for many years. Just a couple to call out on this one, just as an example. G3. They're Gallo Wines. They also are a client of Databricks as well as Sigma. Anyways, just an idea of who we support as a company here at Saddle Creek.
Awesome. So Todd, what's kind of the role of data in your day-to-day at Saddle Creek?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, with all these different clients that we support, we've got different systems that we use to support them and their businesses. So from warehouse management systems, you'll hear me say WMS, that's what that is, or TMS, it's our transportation systems, OMS, our order management tool that we use. All of those generates their own data sets, and trying to combine that in a visualization tool without the data being in the right spot and in the right time, can always be a little bit of a challenge. So one of the things that we've done over the years is try to be best of breed whenever we pick a solution for whatever problem we're trying to solve, which, as you can imagine, creates another problem on the other end when it comes to data and trying to marry that stuff all together and make it self-serve and accessible to our end users. So data is super important to us when it comes to trying to make the right decisions at the right time and make the best decisions for our clients.
Awesome. I'm glad you considered best of class. So with that, let me talk a little bit about Sigma. Sigma is a data platform company where we are trying to bring the power of Databricks directly to your business users. We are a spreadsheet-based interface, and we do everything from traditional BI, where you can create all these dashboards for KPIs for your internal business. We also have write-back capabilities, so you can do scenario modeling, forecasting, what-if analysis. We also have something new, what we're calling data applications, with which you can actually pretty much build a lot of internal tools and also very soon external-facing tools as well. And all of this can be extended to your customers with the power of embedded analytics. So you can take this, put it in your application, and the entire power of Sigma is in hands of your customers. It's pretty flexible with what we can do with Sigma. A little bit about what sets us apart. We're kind of splitting this into traditional BI and new BI. And what we feel traditional BI is table stakes, and pretty much all BI tools should have the architecture, right? The architecture to support billions and almost trillions of rows of data at the scale at which your business runs. We want to be in this journey with you. So if your data grows, you don't want to change a tool when it goes beyond a certain limit. Multi-method. Not everybody in your company is going to be at the same skill level. There will be people who would be familiar with spreadsheets, some will be with SQL, Python, and some none of that, right? So you need AI for it. So all of those things can be can be used in the same workbook, and across your teams with different skill levels, you can all be part of the same workbook and the collaborative method. On the collaboration, I briefly mentioned the write-back capabilities. You are able to use input tables. You are able to write it back to your data warehouse and then have that data available immediately for your use. In the new BI world, everybody's talking about AI, so are we. We want to make sure that your business users are able to ask a question and get the insights that they need directly from Sigma. And with embedding, we want to extend it out to your customers as well. It doesn't have to be just within Sigma. And then lastly, workflows. So this is an interesting thing where a lot of times when you look at a dashboard, the first question you think of like, so what, and who cares, right? A lot of time you want to take action on the data that you see. And so with what we've built here with actions and the workflow logic, you're able to take actions in not only Sigma, it could be in your application or it could be in any third-party application as well. So kind of all of this combined together, we are thinking, we're thinking about traditional BI and making sure the use cases there are all resolved, but also the new world where the people are going beyond just the dashboards. And then talking about embedded analytics, and our partners like Saddle Creek typically have 3 objectives in mind. One of them is accelerate time to market. We are one of the fastest tools that you can onboard with and go to market with on an embed scenario. We also provide a very tailored UX. So we have functionalities around account types where you can configure the exact experience that you want to deploy to your end users. So you can have a crawl, walk, run approach where you can start with just viewing dashboards to then exploring to creating dashboards all within Sigma. And you don't have to keep on making massive changes to be able to do that. And then lastly, you can increase revenue with flexible monetization path. Again, you can have that bronze, silver, gold tiered in your product. And again, based on what you deploy in your product, you can charge more or less based on it. So with that, we're going to pass it over back to Todd to talk about your journey, the enterprise data journey.
Yeah, so just to give you a little background on where we're at, we started with Databricks just over 2 years ago. Our first task was, as many of you would assume, was getting that data into Databricks so that it's usable. It took a little longer than I had hoped, but we made really good progress over the last 2 years. We've got all of our core platforms, which I think we're probably up to 30-some systems that we've got in there right now, if not more, and more on the way. Using tools like Databricks DLT. We're also pulled in DBT to help us processing through the different layers, and then finally exposing it in Sigma. But just to give that context of what's taken so long is it's not just an easy point and click. Now, like the Lakeflow Connect stuff that I saw this morning, it might be a little bit easier now than what it was 2 years ago when we first started on this journey. But we ended up partnering with the guys over at Fivetran, so that's helped us get onboarded with pulling a lot of our cloud source data into Databricks. And then the next big step is what I'll talk a little bit more on is really that enterprise data strategy of now that we've got the data in, what do we do with it so that my end users can pull out whatever they want, whenever they want, and however they want, right? Whether that's through Sigma, whether that's through Databricks. We're doing Delta sharing with some of our clients right now for those ones that have the ability to do this work themselves and pull it into their tools. But the first part to make that work is not just exposing that raw data. You've got to make sure that it's in consumable format, meaning that all the different source systems that we have, the IDs tied together, so that if we wanted to base or bounce revenue against how many temporary associates that we have in the office or in the warehouse working that day, or how many orders did we ship out that day versus something that would not be part of our WMS platform, right? Tying all that stuff together is a little bit of a challenge, and that's what we've been working through probably over the last 6 to 9 months. And getting it ready so that when we put Sigma on top of it, that our end users will get that self-service that they're expecting. So from the Sigma side, worked with Stu, good guy if you haven't met him yet, he's up here. Helped us take a look at Sigma, and bring that into the environment. But to step back just a little bit, how we pulled Sigma in was, we've been our current solution that we've had for 17 plus years. It's been around for a while. They've changed their names recently and looks like a Bitcoin, if you might know who those guys are. But We've used them for quite some time, and had some feedback, some from our younger generation, as well as a few others, that maybe this tool was a little dated compared to some of the other stuff out there. So they pushed pretty hard to get us to at least consider changing the application that we use. So went to RFP, pulled in, I don't know, 8, 9 different vendors in the very beginning, narrowed it down. But we use Gartner, if you guys know who they are, and went to their Magic Quadrant, as most companies would do to start this process, and pulled off everybody that's the top player, right? And lo and behold, Sigma was not on there. So my CIO asked me to review the list before she got started on the RFP process, and I did a little bit of research on all the vendors that pulled up on the list, and I'd seen Sigma at the Databricks conference last couple of years and threw them on there just to make sure that we had some good competition between all the different vendors that are out there. And anyways, long story short, they ended up winning with a team of 26 that I think was part of the review.
Right.
So it was a lot of work that went into it. It was about a 6-month process, but it was a unanimous vote at the end to go towards Sigma. So a lot of that has to do with what Zalik was talking about of spinning things up, getting self-service available, and not a lot of overhead like what we have to do with our current platform that we use in terms of getting new data in and getting it exposed. So I'll talk about a little bit about that and show you some examples here in the next couple slides.
Very cool. Hopefully we'll solve the Gartner problem this year.
Yeah, I heard that's coming.
What were some of the limitations that you were running into before in the previous tools? And as you were evaluating some of the other tools, like what were the things where Sigma just stood apart?
Yeah, the write back piece for sure. That was one thing that our previous tool has. Not necessarily as streamlined and as user friendly as yours, but we were able to write back to our on-prem SQL servers to, if we wanted to enhance some data, we could with that tool, and almost. Actually, I think every single other tool we looked at, that feature did not exist. And because we used it so prominently throughout our company, it was a huge ask and need that we needed to make sure that we were able to solve that going forward. But I'd say that for sure. And you guys asked a lot of good questions in the beginning, the Sigma team did, and comparatively to some of the other vendors, we were like, these guys know what they're doing just based on some of the questions that we got asked, making sure that they know whether or not they're going to be a good fit for us based off a lot of those questions. So it was a couple of those things made you guys stand up for sure.
Very cool. And what were some of the wins that you immediately saw, like as you implemented Sigma or you're planning on?
Sure. Yeah, we're early on, like I said, March of this year. So. But the team over at Sigma did a proof of concept for us, proof of value they call it. You got to get the new terms right.
Yeah.
And it was around, and I'll show you some slides on that in a second here too. It was around our standard metrics that we came up with for our company. So again, we're a family-owned company. A lot of our locations are kind of encouraged to do their own, be a little more entrepreneur and handle themselves as long as we're making, profit and everything's looking good. We don't ask a lot of questions, but as we've grown over the years, we figured out that, hey, we at least got to have some standard metrics for keeping track of, hey, did we ship everything out on time? Well, we found out that, one location might calculate on time slightly different than somebody else that maybe is not necessarily fair across the board. So we took a lot of time to come up with some definitions on what we felt we needed to track holistically across the company. And the Sigma team built a dashboard based off of some of the initial work that my team had did, and basically blew the group away. The team loved what the turnaround time was. Ian over at Sigma put this together in just a few days for us, and again, I'll show a couple screenshots of it here in a second. You'll be able to see that it definitely looks like there was a lot more work that went into it than just a few days.
Very cool. So maybe let's talk about the executive dashboard that you worked on.
Yep. So what started this whole process was in 2024. Some of our executive leadership had a couple of comments, and this one kind of really stuck, was that Saddle Creek lacks timely, accurate, and consistent organizational performance reporting visibility at leadership levels. I know it's a lot to say. This negatively impacts our ability to quickly react and take action to address service-critical issues important to our clients' success and retention. So again, based on my comment earlier about on-time service, right? Did we ship out the orders that we needed to ship out on a timely manner? And again, not being measured the same across the board. When that came up with a few of the leaders, they're like, that's not right, right? Yeah. So making sure that we addressed a lot of that as best we can. So this started this off. We kicked off a team. I think there was about 8 people on that team that went throughout and visited all of our operations, a good chunk of our operations, took some input from them, kind of standardized or normalized all the input that we got, and came up with about 100 different metrics. Some of those are sub-metrics that kind of roll up to give you the overall numbers, but a lot of good information came out of that exercise. So if you want to flip to the next one, kind of show a little bit of what this looks like. So this is in Sigma. We have about a year of operations data that my team, as well as the data science team, kind of championed of getting this all together. Did a rapid proof of concept between our internal team as well as a Sigma group. We had about a 2-week engagement with those guys. This was not the only output. This was just one of them. From here, again, one dashboard, 130 different metrics that we're working towards. Would have been 3 different reports currently in MicroStrategy as we were trying. Oh, there's the name. And then users can slice and dice the data however they want within Sigma. Now, they could do it a little bit in the previous tool, but it's definitely not as user-friendly as what Sigma is, for sure.
Awesome. So apart from the slicing and dicing, do you see there was like improved adoption, or users were able to get more value from this than before?
Yeah, historically, in the logistics industry, if any of y'all in the room are familiar with it, we're a little behind the times when it comes to adopting technology. We still historically send out emails every morning at X amount out, every single hour, whatever it is, on these different various reports that we use. And they're snapshots, right? You're not going to make a good decision off of a snapshot that was sent out at 8 a.m. and it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon and you're looking at it, right? So one of the things that the team is really excited for is having that near real-time usability and being able to drill into stuff that they couldn't drill into before, or they'd have to bounce out to one of our other platforms to get the detail on it because we were summarizing it in the visualization tool and not having the detail behind it to back it up, right? At least to the level that the users wanted. So a few other things I'm sure I can drill in a little bit more if we want to, but I think that covers it.
Awesome. Okay, so you want to talk about the warehouse operation visibility?
Yep, sure. So this, again, part of that same workbook that we were looking at just a second ago. This is another section, but these are more those KPI widgets that are based off of those metrics that we were talking about. This is going to help a ton on our internal side about improving visualization, making sure that the users start off their day taking a look at this, making sure everything's looking right, checking it throughout the day. And then, as well as our external clients. This is something that we're working towards, and Zalek will have a little more context, I think, in this in a minute about embedding. So we use ServiceNow as our CSM, and we're planning on, and actually have a demo of this that I could show somebody if they want to see it in a little bit, but of this dashboard that we're working towards inside of ServiceNow with security, so that when client A logs in, they only see client A's data, which is passed back to Databricks and then returned back into Sigma, all real time, so that there's no cubes or in-memory stuff like you're used to with a lot of the other tools. This is on the fly. It's as fresh as the data that's going to be in Databricks.
Yes, Sigma just inherits all the permissions that you might have set up in Databricks, so you don't have to redo a bunch of role-based access again in Sigma, so it's an easy pass-through. Yeah,
that's a good call-out too, I think, just from a security standpoint. That's always, depending on who you're talking to, either the first or last topic that comes up, right? Yeah. With what we're doing so far in Databricks, we're doing role-level security with column masking as well, so that if a user logs into Databricks or now into Sigma, that passes all the way through to the back end. So when it's filtering data, it's all dynamic based off of that user that's logged in. Nothing that I've got to set up in Sigma, no security roles that I have to manage in 2 different places. It's all done in Databricks based off of role-based access and groups and stuff like that. So streamlined a lot of our security process that was super complicated in our previous tools.
Yeah, what's some of the examples of things people would do in these dashboards, and how is it bringing value to them?
Yep, so I'll go back to my example about the whole on-time shipping thing. That's a key metric, not only for us internally, but for our clients as well, right? They're entrusting us that when one of their clients places an order, that we get it, we process it, package it up, ship it out as soon as we can so that they get it as soon as they can. That whole Amazon effect with everybody expecting stuff same day, next day, that kind of thing.
2 hours.
Those are 2 hours, right? That metric right there is key for us. So like they'll use that to make sure that the warehouse floor, from at least on the leadership side, that the warehouse floor is out performing the way that they should. If there's any issues that arise, it's going to pop up on that one before anything else, so that they can help, maybe adjust labor, pull labor off of one of our other accounts to go address. Maybe the truck came in late and we need to have 3 bodies unloading the truck instead of 1 or 2, So this is helping them drive where they need to work, or at least focus our labor to make sure that we're getting product in and out of the door.
Right, so the real-time effect is like is super important. Got it. So what's next?
So this is a big number. If any of y'all are in the room and had been in the BI space for some time and potentially used a tool for the amount of time that we have, you've accumulated a whole bunch of stuff. Well, we accumulated about 33,000 reports that we had in our previous tool, and no way did I want to migrate 33,000 reports to a new platform. So kind of ripped off the Band-Aid and we did have some metadata on around what the usage looked like, but instead of relying on that solely, we kind of pushed back on our business users to say, hey, you guys need to go back and audit all of this stuff because we're not going to migrate everything with the level of effort that it would be to migrate all this stuff. Who knows if it was built 10 years ago and never, nobody's really using it, but somebody clicked on it once, and it showed up as usage because they didn't know what was in it and they've never touched it again. So we pushed back on the business users to help us do an audit on that. So pulled in a big group to audit all that stuff, which now the number's a little bit higher than it was when I had to submit my slides, but we're about just under 1,000 reports that we're going to end up having to rebuild in Sigma. And in theory, we should be able to get this down to 25 workbooks, and I'll talk about that just a little bit. So from our finance side of the house, our finance team does P&Ls, all that other fun stuff that your fun finance team probably does as well. They control security, who gets what, when, that kind of thing. We're working with a couple of our more power users on the finance end. We were able to consolidate about 100 to 130 different individual reports that they would generate on a weekly, monthly basis down to one workbook inside of Sigma. So that workbook will have multiple tabs, but on the first tab kind of summarizes some of the KPIs that everybody's going to want to look at, and then if they want to drill into the detail, there's other tabs that will show what their P&Ls actually are, right, for all the different GL accounts or budgets to actuals. That kind of stuff will all end up being in one workbook. So instead of having to manually export Excel sheets, push them out to SharePoint, which controls all the security that our different operations folks use, it'll all be in Sigma, all be in Databricks. No extra security needs to get applied because all of that's handled on our data that we get out of Workday in terms of who belongs to what cost center. We're cost center based. So that's all dynamic based out of all the data that we get from all of our various tools, which today had to be done manually, from multiple different teams. So again, a big journey, not a sprint in this action. We're just getting started, but have a good team supporting us and making some really good progress on it so far.
Yeah, we've consistently got this feedback from finance team or accounting teams that a lot of users are very familiar with Excel sheets, so that the spreadsheet interface in Sigma just makes the transition much easier. And now everything is governed. It's not flying around on like extracts. So I'm glad you're also getting the benefit from it.
Yeah, and I didn't have any slides in here on the Excel style look that Sigma does have, but for those users that are love their Excel and formula wizards, they'll be able to do the same thing inside of Sigma within reason, right? I mean, they may be able to do it for themselves, but not necessarily publish it out so that they've changed, how we calculate revenue across the board. That's all governed behind the scenes. But they'll be able to do enough to be dangerous and at least satisfy, hopefully, what they would normally have exported out and ran those calculations inside of Excel.
Yeah, I think one of the first things when we started Sigma was, a lot of times when people get the dashboard, the first thing they do is download Excel because they want to pivot the data. So we added pivot tables in it. So now you have no reason to really extract if you're just pivoting it. So, awesome. Let's talk about AI as well. I think you were investing a lot in this area too. Yeah,
for sure. So the screenshot here is a Genie space on the Databricks end. I'll go into a little bit of detail on that, but what I want to touch on first is that we proof of concept this out in Genie spaces inside of Databricks, and for our specific use case at Saddle Creek, we're trying to hold back on giving everybody in my company access to Databricks. Not that I would be okay with that, but they're going to get in there and not know what to do, right? Not everybody knows how to write SQL or whatever. Now, and the Genie spaces are definitely a good addition to that, but it's still a little bit of work to know where to go to get to those Genie spaces, right? So our plan is to get this embedded in Sigma and connect it with Sigma to be able to use Ask Sigma and return very similar data. But in this use case, our time and attendance data we pulled into Databricks, one of the first data sets we pulled in, and pulled in the metadata for each of the columns. You had to define what the columns are, what the tables were, right? And how they related with the primary foreign key stuff. But that's really all the setup that we did to make this work. After that was done, I've got a couple examples on here to grade out some of the stuff, but I really just asked some basic questions of how many hours did this location have last week? How many overtime hours, right? What was the total amount of employees that worked that week? Databricks summarized it perfectly, generates the SQL, shows you exactly what it's doing so you can validate that it's right. And honestly, we didn't have to do any extra training like we would have on some of the other tools out there. Super impressed with how good and flawless it's been. But again, taking that structure and now getting that into Sigma so that our end users, you know, when they go to look at data, they're only having to go to one place, which is going to be Sigma is that interface for that user experience.
Yeah, definitely. We are basically the UI for the AI that is defined in your warehouse. So let me talk a little bit more about Ask Sigma.
I just want to do a quick time check. We have 10 minutes left.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is the last slide, I promise. So Ask Sigma, we were kind of built on 4 main principles here. The first thing is discoverability, because when you go to these BI tools, you are given a lot of these assets and you don't know what to do with them. So we want to make sure that people are able to discover the right things. So you can predefine all the data sets or data sources that you want these users to engage with, and then their worldview is limited and you can ask questions for that. The second thing is transparency. So as you can see, we show the entire work, right? In school, when you solve a math problem, you're asked to show the work. That's what we do. We show everything that you would do as a human, but the AI is doing it for you. And the third thing is control. At any step, you can actually say, you know what, you picked the wrong table. I want you to pick this other table, or pick the wrong column, pick this other column. We allow you to have complete control in the entire process. And then lastly, a path forward. So as you can see, like those checkboxes at the bottom, we gave you more than what you asked for, and gave you a path forward where you can take this into a Sigma workbook and do further analysis that you need. So this is more of a starting point of the full analysis that you want to do. You can obviously get the answer if the question is very simple, but most of the time when you get an answer, you have more questions and you don't want to stop the journey there. You want to take you into this entire workbook, and then you can continue this journey in the workbook. So I'm excited for you to try this out in the coming months, and maybe next year when we're back here, we can talk about that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because our plan is not only to get this in front of our internal users, but our clients as well. So when they're in service now, you know, looking to put in a case or ask some questions, or check out the analytics that we're now providing out of the box for them, that they'll also have a tool like this to ask the natural language questions that a lot of them, you know, might not do up front without a tool like this. So
exactly.
Excited.